Well, as we continue to interact with political parties and independent candidates contesting the 2024 general elections, today we are joined by Limpopo-born former boxing champion Lovemore Ndou. Ndou announced that he is running for the 2024 elections as an independent candidate in the National Assembly. The former three-time welterweight champion based in Australia briefly returned to South Africa to launch a political campaign for an independent seat. He joins us now. Thank you so much for your time on the program. Well, it hasn't been an easy road, I might say, for independents, to get to this point. You've got to need to attract at least, big support to be elected, So let's talk about yourself. I mean, why did you choose the independent route as opposed to starting a political party or even joining one?
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me on the program. Look, the first thing is I don't have to affiliate myself with a party, to prove, I'm worthy a politician. As I don't have to affiliate myself with an organized religion to prove that I'm a Christian. My work speaks for itself. I'm already on the road, doing more than what parties are doing. I'm not just a politician, I'm also a humanist, but the main reason why, I'm running as an independent is because I believe it's time for an independent voice for Limpopo. For too long, Limpopo and its contribution to the economy of South Africa has been ignored. The ANC has taken Limpopo for granted and focused its political efforts on more challenged provinces of Gauteng, KZN, and Western Cape. Limpopo candidates have had to follow the party line and keep quiet about Limpopo issues. So as an independent candidate in the National Assembly, I don't have to follow the big party lines and shut up about Limpopo. I can be the voice of the Limpopo people and the economy of Limpopo. It's time that Limpopo had an independent voice in Parliament. So I won't hold back in bringing the voice of the people of Limpopo to the people of South Africa. The corruption of the big parties and them stealing the wealth of the Limpopo must stop. So I'm running for office because I believe the country is in trouble. The country is at the brink of collapse due to corruption and self-enrichment by those in power. So once I secure a seat in the National Assembly,
Lovemore, before you get to your key objectives, thank you so much for that. Let's talk about your comments on Limpopo specifically. You talk about government having neglected Limpopo. I want to talk about and stay there. When we look at unemployment in this country, it's sitting roughly at around 35%. Limpopo, for one, has the third highest expended unemployment rate. You speak about it being forgotten and neglected. How would you then, start addressing this particular problem, especially when you consider the youth of this country, especially considering that 14 million people, most of them youth, will not be voting?
Well, look, if you look at it, I think the way the IEC, look, I'm a bit concerned about the way the IEC is running these elections, and particularly when it comes to, independent candidates. I think the whole system was just designed to fail us. And I think enough is not done to encourage, the youth, and the people of Limpopo to go out there and vote. Look, the biggest problem in Limpopo, like you said, is the job issues. We've got, more of the youth, we've got more youth. Some of them are qualified, but because of, issues like, career, deployment, they can't get jobs. So we need to change the system, and put a system where people, are given jobs, based on their qualifications, not based, on their affiliations with a certain party. And apart from that, we need to also educate, our youth. We need to put, an educational system in place that will work, not an educational system designed to fail, our youth. Because the way I look at it now, I don't see any difference between, the Bantu educational system that we had during apartheid and the current educational system we have now. It's clear that the ANC has failed our people. We need to create jobs. And one other way to create jobs is bringing, international investors back to South Africa. But we are not going to do that while we still have, policies like the BEE, which is a failed policy, which is only benefiting, about 5%, of the population, while 95% of the population is ignored. We need to get rid of over-regulations so, potential investors can come back and create jobs for the people.
All right, you've said a lot, and I want to just hold on to that point that you've mentioned on the BEE. I mean, as we've seen with the 2021 local elections, it's easier to win as an independent candidate in a ward, for instance. The stakes are much higher, considerably higher in a national election like this one. I want to talk about how you then plan to attract voters, and I want you to emphasize then on your viewpoints on how you believe the BEE system is a cornerstone of corruption and what you would then, replace it with.
Well, I would replace it with a better policy, that will allow broader participation in the economy by all people of South Africa, irrespective of party, affiliation. Well, in terms of how am I going to win votes, how am I going to change things? Look, I'm already on the road. I'm doing things, like I said, that parties are not doing. I'm out there fixing problems, like backroom issues in Messina. I'm going around and blocking sewages in places like Messina and Thohoyandou. Issues that the municipalities are ignoring because of lack of service delivery. I'm paying for all these things out of my own pocket. I'm renovating community centers for the elderly. I'm contributing towards childcare centers. I sponsor a number of students. I have my team on the ground, cleaning up streets and cemeteries that the municipalities are ignoring. During floods, for example, my team and I are on the ground helping clean up the damage caused by the flood. We donate meals to the less fortunate. We buy school books and uniforms for the less fortunate. All these are things that I do out of my own good heart. Why? Because I believe that in life we have to serve something greater than yourself. I'm also a believer that, the true measure for man's righteousness is based on what you do to reform society. It is based on what you do to better the conditions of others, not what we currently have with the current government, which is only, concerned, where we have leaders who are only concerned about enriching themselves. So, despite, the difficulties we're facing, as independents, I'm so confident. I'm confident that I'll get the votes that I need because people can see what I'm doing. I don't just talk about things. I get out there and do things. And at the end of the day, I'm also not concerned whether I get enough votes or not because I'm just going to continue doing what I do, helping the people. Most particularly the people of Limpopo, which is where I come from.
Yeah, one of the, fundamental reasons the broad-based empowerment was introduced by government was to address the inequalities in South Africa caused by apartheid. You talk of the fact that it is now benefiting the few. Should you not be addressing on that point in as far as that is concerned, holding leaders accountable, holding those, that are found to be abusing that policy instead of eradicating it?
It needs to be changed. Look, the idea behind the policy is laudable. It was, like you said, it was a policy that was put in place, in an attempt to address, the issues we had, during apartheid. But it's not doing that. It's doing the opposite. It's promoting corruption. Yes, it's not just about changing that, the BEE policy, but we also have to, work on issues like, the rule of law. The rule of law, which is supposed to be sacrosanct, is not, it's non-existent in South Africa. So until we have a legal system that is working and we can hold those in power accountable, nothing is going to change. So it's not just a matter of changing the BEE policy only. There are a number of things we need to change. We need to put leaders, we need to have leaders that are qualified for the positions that they are holding, and we need to make them accountable and, use the legal system, to make them accountable. if necessary.
All right, I want to ask this question, and it will be, two-pronged. When we look at leadership in this country, it is at an all-time low, just given, the trust deficit. People are most aggrieved by just how out of touch our leaders have become. I mean, you've been living in Australia for over 27 years. So the question really is, one, how will you then close the gap and ensure that everything you do, particularly as you represent people in the National Assembly, is for the people and not for your self-gain? And more importantly, you have this global outlook, given the fact that you've been out of the country for most of its democracy. How will you then use that opportunity to attract investment, as you've earlier pointed out?
Okay, that's a great question. Look, the thing is, I left South Africa, because at the time I wanted to further, my studies and pursue a boxing career on an international level. At the time, I felt development and infrastructures in South Africa did not support the goals, and this is not to say much has changed since then, because if anything, the country has regressed in the last 30 years. So my point is, South Africa did not support the goals. I had gone as far as I could in South Africa. So Australia is a first world country, and I wanted to enhance my skills to then come back and invest in South Africa. And that's why I'm back now. I've never lost touch with my nation. I did not defect. My roots are firmly rooted in South Africa. I now have 7 university degrees, which include law and politics. I'm more educated than all the presidents this country has ever had. And this makes me an exceptional candidate and extremely qualified to occupy a seat in the National Assembly and run a better South Africa. It's unfortunate, but our black leaders have failed our nation. The current governments across the board are plagued, with what I see as mismanagement. I've been a student of a first world country and would like to apply my skills and learning to South Africa. What Australia has taught me is how to build and maintain infrastructures, how to care for the elderly, how to provide job security for the people, because I do epitomize the value of education. As many smart people would tell you that, the power is in the pen and knowledge is the power. So it's equipped me with cross-sectional tools to run a better South Africa, a South Africa where the future of our children is guaranteed. And I'll tell you what I'm already doing. I'm already putting in a Lovemore scholarship in place, which will allow me to send people to South Africa, South Africans to Australia, where they will learn how to build modular homes. Then they'll come back to South Africa and teach the local South Africans how to build this, modular homes. So solving 2 problems at once. I'm solving the job issue. This will create job opportunities for people, and then this will also, solve the housing issue. Modular homes are affordable, sustainable, and quick to build. So people will have jobs and they'll be able to buy these modular homes. And you'd have to agree with me that modular homes are better than shacks. Currently, we've got a situation where people are so willing to receive their RDP houses for more than 20 years. And we know what's happening with that. Those in power are actually selling or giving the RDP houses to those, associated with them. So I already have a plan, and I intend to bring investors, international investors, to South Africa to create more job opportunities for South Africans.
You seem like you have a lot of plans. There are, of course, concerns, and these have been raised particularly to smaller parties and independent candidates, in the sense that, what impact you will make in the National Assembly. Just given that, thought and concern, are there any parties that you consider that you will be in alliance with, looking at, of course, the reality of coalitions in this country? Is there a party that you've identified that speaks to some of these, these key objectives that you want to introduce?
I think the question should be which parties I wouldn't work with. Look, I'll be honest with you, there are some parties that I won't work with unless, I see some major changes in the way they behave and the way they've been behaving. At the top of the list, is the ANC. It's a failed party that has nothing else left to offer but blame. It blames all its failures on apartheid and the white capital, monopoly, which is non-existent. it is a divided party, and we all know that a divided house cannot stand. So it cannot keep its own house in order. How do we expect it to keep a country in order? The second party I wouldn't work with, is Malima's, EFF party. EFF basically stands for everything for free. Malema wants you to believe that, he will give you everything for free, including, land. Anyone that thinks that Malema is going to give them land is misguided. If anything, he's going to expropriate your wealth and land and share it with his cronies. He wants to take control of banks and mines and do what with them? Except maybe share with his cronies. They have already destroyed places like, Ekurhuleni. Now you want them to destroy the country. The EFF is an extremist party and is no different to the African Weerstandsbeweging, the AWB. It's concerning when you have a party leader, an elected representative of a country who continuously preaches hate speeches and sings songs about, killing the Boers. This is not the South Africa we fought so hard for. This is not what Mandela spent 27 years in jail for. The other party that concerns me is the DA. The DA is a party formed out of splits and mergers. It has been the official opposition party forever, and that seems to be all it's good for. The DA is good at pointing out what's wrong with the opposition, but cannot come up with an alternative. It is a party for the middle class and does not understand that, meaningful change begins at grassroots. It does not understand that people at the grassroots in areas like Limpopo, are not concerned about climate change. They are more concerned about how they are going to put food on the table the next day, how they are going to pay school fees for their children, and where their water is going to come from the next day. Fixing climate change is important, but it won't feed hungry people in the Limpopo or in any other province. The MK party, I won't work with that party. Where I say Ramaphosa is the most useless president we have ever had, Zuma was the most corrupt. He previously sold our country to the Guptas. Who is he going to sell the country to now? The MK is a faction, of a failed ANC. So you can expect nothing else from it but more failures. Yes, look, I'm open to working with other candidates, at unrepresented parties. But having said that, all that, what I know, look, I might have, we might have different opinions. We might have different, philosophies. We might have different policies, But all I know, for certain is that, we may differ in our policies, in our philosophies and principles, but we are all advocating for a change of government. That's why I'm open to working with independents and, unrepresented parties. We are all concerned about improving the quality of life of ordinary South Africans. We are all advocating for a better South Africa for all.
Lovemore, we don't have enough time. We don't have enough time, and I want to get this point across. Of course, we talked about the challenges that independent candidates have had to go through, in as far as the elections are concerned. Let's talk now very quickly about your campaign. Who's funding your campaign? Of course, you're not obliged by law yet to declare your funds and where they come from, but just talk to us a little bit about that. Are you prepared to publicly declare who's funding your campaign, and if you were elected, also subject yourself?
Yes, of course. Mm-hmm. Of course, I'm funding my campaign. Every cent I've spent so far has come direct from my own pocket. And and when times comes and I get funding from other people, I'll be open to the public. I want to set an example. I would declare and I'll be open to everyone. And I'll tell everybody where my money came from. But what I'm spending at the moment is money coming from my own pocket. And look, I think there's one important thing I also wanted to raise. You mentioned something about a coalition government, in South Africa. Look, based on what we have seen, in local governments, I'm not convinced that South Africa is ready for a coalition government. A coalition government, only works, where parties against the same philosophy and policies. It will not work where parties differ in, ideology and policy. What we have seen, happening in areas like, Ekurhuleni, KZN, Tshwane, reflects broader challenges within coalition governments. Coalitions don't work because of the battles of power and positions, by party representatives, the mistrust and factionalism that goes on, including, the tendency for leaders to put power before the people, results, in lack of service delivery. Now, this is only on a local level. Now, imagine what would happen on a national level, should we end up with a coalition government. It would turn into disaster. So it also does not, assist, that coalition agreements, are not legally binding. Parties can always walk away from them, at any given time without recourse. So I'm not convinced, that South Africa is ready for coalition government.
All right. So you've unpacked a lot and you've said a lot. I'm giving you just this final question very briefly, if you can, Lovemore. What do you want your voters to look forward to, as they go into the elections? In other words, why do you want people to vote for you? Very quickly, in 30 seconds, if you can.
Because, I stand for, for a better South Africa for all. I stand, for a South Africa where, our people are guaranteed jobs. South Africa where, people won't have to pay bribes to secure jobs. A South Africa where the basic needs of our people, like clean water, a better healthcare system, free education, a better sanitation system, are met. I want to see every South African youth that has the right grades and will to go to university, given that opportunity to go to university, because I epitomize the value of education. When I see a grandmother or a grandfather sick or suffer because, of bad living conditions, it concerns me, whether she or he is my grandparent. So, when I see our youth jobless and ending up, committing crimes because of a government that is failing them, it concerns me. So I stand, against policies like BEC that are failing our people. I stand against crime in general and farm killings. I stand against land expropriation without compensation, because we need to protect the security rights, of property, the security of property rights for all South Africans. We need to find a better way to deal with the land issue without compromising the economy. So, I also stand against the water crisis. I stand against, the power crisis. I stand for better housing. Thank you.
Lovemore, thank you so much. A pleasure to have you on the show. And of course, good luck to you and your other independent candidates. Lovemore Ndou, of course, the Limpopo-born former boxing champion. He's also a lawyer. He's got 7 degrees under his other belt. That was Lovemore Ndou. We'll continue, of course, to give you more interviews with other political parties as well as independent candidates as we head to the 2024 polls.